Limerence by devdevlin, read by Alex Mabella. Azkaban is not the most pleasant of places, but Tom finds that it is not quite as horrendous as he'd anticipated. The guards, the Dementors, are unrelenting with their presence, and Tom knows it because there is never a pause from the sound of the yelling, begging, screaming of the other inmates that he overhears while in his cell. But for the most part, the Dementors leave him be. He supposes that what he has left in his soul is not very tempting compared with the others. But there is no entertainment, no company, no movement to keep him busy, barely enough food to keep him alive, let alone energized, and so, despite his best efforts, he spends his days thinking of her. He thinks of her when he wakes, he thinks of her when he sleeps, her eyes, her pain, her desire, her touch, her smell. He thinks of her all the fucking time, and he realizes very early on his stray in Azkaban what his mistake had been. She'd been sworn not to speak about Warren, but she'd made no such vow over Weasley. She'd been free to share her memories with Dumbledore, as long as she only showed him those that revolved around Weasley. Stupid, 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 devious, treacherous, cunning Miss Granger. She was more of a snake than he'd given her credit for, and like a mouse tempted with a ripe strawberry, he'd fallen right into her trap. She'd accused him of murder, and she'd known that when she asked him for confirmation, he would give it. He hadn't even needed convincing, but that wasn't all. Clever, clever Miss Granger hadn't been satisfied with merely locking him up. No, she'd labeled him as a sexual predator to boot. She'd accused him of pursuing a relationship with a student, and like a puppet on a stage, he'd performed for her. Dumbledore and his auras had seen it, his hands up her skirt. With that, she was ensured that he would be laid with 2 charges. 2! Enough to ensure that her threats of spending the rest of his years in Azkaban were not empty, and that he would forever be known as the child murderer and molester of Hogwarts. And yet, when Tom thinks it all over, as he lays on the cold, damp stone of his cell, he laughs. He laughs because it is ridiculous. He has been subjected to a lifetime within the wet walls of Azkaban, a lifeline of isolation and starvation, and weakness and rot, and he has been subjected to it by a fucking schoolgirl. And after it all, it only makes him want her more. Though the years pass, he never stops thinking about Miss Granger. Somewhere along the line, somewhere between his 7th and 8th year in Azkaban, Tom loses track of how long he's been there. The days blend into one another, the dark walls of his cell rendering it impossible to distinguish day from night, and all the while he receives no mail. He receives no visitors, not even Rosier or Dolohov, not a single one aside from the occasional Dementor, and the only company remaining to him is the company of himself. Aside from the steady pace of growth of his hair and his nails, he has no outside indication of how much time he has served. And it is that, he thinks, that is the true torture of Azkaban. Though the Dementors leave him be, time does not. And time is far worse monster than a Dementor will ever be. Tom withers. He wastes away in his cell slowly but surely, and he often wonders whether being tethered to life by his Horcruxes would be a better existence than the one he currently has. Between his thoughts of her, he wonders, and he wonders, and he wonders whether he would be able to see her then. He wonders whether he could do it. He wonders whether beating his head on the stone until his body succumbed to its mortality would be more painful than the slow passing of time. He doesn't think it would be, and yet he cannot bring himself to do it. He cannot bring himself to do it because every time he thinks of it, he thinks of her. Her eyes, her pain, her desire, her touch, her smell. He continues to wonder as the nights and days drag on, and he wonders, he tosses, and he turns, until one day he has an idea. It is a simple idea, not a complex one at all, one that is so simple that he thinks if she were in Azkaban, she would have thought of it years ago. It is simple, but he thinks, at a long last, that he has a way out. The Dementors pay him no mind, not during their rounds, not during the night, not during the day, and especially not during the feedings. That day, night, he doesn't know which, When they come to his cell to deposit the tray of diced, undercooked fish, Tom simply walks out. He slinks out of the cell past the Dementor who'd fed him, and past the one in the hall, and when he makes it down the winding stairs, he passes 3 more. They pay him no mind. He walks out as if they are blind, and they do not seem to care. He wonders briefly if they will notice his absence after a while. He may only have a quarter of a soul, but he is sure its presence must be detectable. But then, as he's had the thought, Tom decides that it does not matter. He doesn't need his freedom for long, just long enough to find her. Ruthless, cunning, brilliant Miss Granger. She may not have wanted him then, but she will want him now, he is sure. She has had years to stew, to toss and to turn, and what is it that they say? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. She will want him. She will want him, or else, this time, he will make her. To be continued. Thank you for listening to today's chapter of Limerence by devdevlin, read by Alex Mabella. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, AO3, Instagram, or Tumblr.